Hello ladies, gentlemen, boys, girls, innies, outies and in-betweeners. My name's Dan. Welcome back to another PAP Reports. Today is Thursday, April the 9th, 2020. Today we're starting with notice that PC 291 Christopher Birkenshaw from West Yorkshire Police is to attend a misconduct hearing scheduled for next Thursday and Friday after allegations that he has breached the standards of professional behaviour in relation to honesty and integrity and discreditable conduct. It's alleged that in March 2018, PC Birkenshaw and a PS Piggin, couldn't make that up, attended the home address of a registered sex offender known as Mr. A. Mr. A was taken to Huddersfield Police Station and asked if he would agree to have his photograph taken for an internal newsletter, which he agreed. Seems a bit strange. PC Birkenshaw was present throughout and understood that the photograph was not for wider distribution. The photo was never used. On the 19th of March 2019, PC Birkenshaw's then partner, Ms. B, alleged that he had shown her the photograph of Mr. A. PC Birkenshaw was served with a Regulation 15 notice of investigation in relation to this allegation. It is alleged that on the 2nd of May 2019, PC Birkenshaw visited PC Barker at a home address and showed her the Regulation 15 notice and discussed the allegation made against him by Ms. B, asking PC Barker to contact PS Piggin in order to request the photo be deleted. PC Birkenshaw has therefore intended to disrupt and potentially undermine the investigation into him. Obviously, I'll let you know the outcome of that when the information becomes available. An unnamed Brighton and Hove police constable has been suspended from duties while the force investigates potential misconduct allegations. The force have currently failed to give any details on the constable's name or the offences he is alleged to have committed, which is funny as police forces also often tell us after misconduct hearings that transparency is so important and that police forces want the public to see just how transparent they are. Yeah, okay then. South Yorkshire Police have released the outcome of 2 misconduct hearings that were held in February. During one of the hearings, it was revealed that a member of staff drove their vehicle to work whilst over the drink-drive limit. South Yorkshire Police have also failed to name the staff member who subsequently went on to appear in court and was convicted of the offence. Another great bit of transparency there as well, South Yorkshire Police. Well done. The misconduct panel found the police staff's behaviour amounted to gross misconduct and they were given their P45. In another hearing, also held in February, another member of police staff was accused of removing an Xbox and games from an address and taking it home. The hearing heard that the items did not belong to the staff member and they were taken to their home address without a legitimate policing purpose and with the intention of keeping them. In other words, he thieved them. Why don't you just say that? The staff member failed to record the recovery of the Xbox games and failed to book the items into the police property store. That member of staff resigned the day before the misconduct hearing. The misconduct panel still went ahead and found the matters were proven and amounted to gross misconduct, and that staff member would have been dismissed if they were still serving. Isn't it nice to see that theme of transparency running throughout all the police forces of this once great country? Now, if you're a resident of Gloucestershire, then it may be helpful to know that Gloucestershire Police will be setting up checkpoints in an attempt to engage with motorists to establish why they're travelling and explain the risks of public health in a bid to reduce unnecessary travel. They will ask road users to consider if they need to travel and encourage them to return home. They mean threaten. If they refuse to take the advice on board, enforcement will be used but only as a last resort. Told you. But don't worry too much, because as I've already said recently and was evidenced in yesterday's report, by staying silent can and is often your very best protection, as the onus is on the police to prove you've broken any regulations. Also, and stick with me till the end, as shortly I will be explaining about a change in the legislation that will offer you some more protection to these arbitrary detentions and interrogations. Remember, however, if you are driving, then under Section 163 of the Road Traffic Act, you must stop when requested to do so by a constable in uniform. Section 164 and 165 says you have an obligation to give your details when requested, although this does not mean you have to speak. Simply show or give them your documents if you have them, otherwise you're going to have to interact with them, but please keep your conversation strictly related to you not having your documents with you and getting a producer from them, as this is all that's important. Any deviation onto where you're going, where you've been, will result in the police trying to find an offence and issue you with a fine. You cannot be forced to engage in any conversation other than what you want to speak about. So don't be fooled or coerced into self-incrimination. The World Health Organization has made an extremely concerning statement in a press briefing last week about how they may be forced to remove people from their homes due to coronavirus. During a daily press briefing last week, an official from the World Health Organization acknowledged that lockdowns in nations across the world have, in some senses, driven infections from off the street to inside the home. Dr. Michael Ryan, Executive Director of the World Health Organization Health Emergencies Programme, suggested there may be medical professionals going door to door to find those likely infected and remove them from the home for what's called dignified isolation. He said in most parts of the world, due to lockdown, most of the transmission that's actually happening in many countries now is happening in the household, at family level. In some senses, transmission has been taken off the streets and pushed back into family units. Now we need to go look in families to find people who may be sick and remove them and isolate them in a safe and dignified manner. The transition from movement restrictions and shutdowns and stay-at-home orders can only be made if we have in place the means to be able to detect suspect cases, isolate confirmed cases, track contacts and follow up on the contacts' health at all times, explained Dr. Ryan, and then isolate any of those people who become sick themselves. Now, for those of you who don't believe or don't want to believe what I've just told you, here is a section of a video where he describes this particular act. The full video is in the article linked to in the description.
Public health practitioners, doctors, nurses, community workers working with communities to detect cases at community level. And the most likely person to become a case is someone who's been a significant contact of another case. And at the moment, in most parts of the world, due to lockdown, most of the transmission that's actually happening in many countries now is happening in the household, at family level. In some senses, transmission has been taken off the streets and pushed back into family units. Now we need to go and look in families to find those people who may be sick and remove them and isolate them in a safe and dignified manner. So that's what I was saying previously about the transition from movement restrictions and shutdowns and stay-at-home orders can only be made if we have in place the means to be able to detect suspect cases, isolate suspect confirmed cases, track contacts and follow up on the contact health at all times, and then isolate any of those people who become sick themselves.
Now for some good news before we get back to the bad stuff. Bindmans LLP are a law firm who were instructed on behalf of two families with children with autistic spectrum disorder whose conditions necessitate them leaving the house more than once a day for their own well-being, submitted pre-action correspondence to the government over the guidance that's been issued around reasons that you're allowed to leave your home. It was submitted that adults with children and certain health conditions, including those with autism and mental health conditions, were disproportionately impacted by the inflexible policy which required everyone to only leave the house for exercise once per day, which in all fairness could never really have been fully policed anyway, and which was therefore unlawful and discriminatory. The restrictions in the policy were also not reflected in the Health Protection Coronavirus Restrictions England Regulations 2020, the legislations that were restricting our movements. Well, the government has confirmed that it has amended the leaving home guidance to make it clear that those with health conditions that require them to leave their homes more than once a day and travel beyond their local area are expressly permitted to do so. In particular, the guidance has been changed to provide that you can leave your home for medical need if you or a person in your care have a specific health condition that requires you to leave your home to maintain your health, including if that involves travel beyond your local area. Then you can do so. This could, for example, include where individuals with learning disabilities or autism require specific exercise in an open space 2 or 3 times each day, ideally in line with a care plan agreed with a medical professional. Now, this is something I've already spoken about recently, and I've made my stance clear on this in previous videos. There was never any way that being picked up for being out of your home multiple times a day could be lawful. As a sufferer of mental health condition myself, I knew this could not be used against you, and if it was, then you would easily have grounds to sue the police for doing so. Mental health does not mean you have to be under a psychiatrist. Sometimes people simply need some time alone to clear their heads, especially now everyone is forced to be under each other's feet. That half an hour walk or sit down on a bench somewhere is imperative to your mental health well-being, and you should not be afraid to go out, obviously on your own and observing social distancing. More and more claims of unreasonable policing are emerging even after the police have received their guidance from the National Police Chief Council over the new coronavirus regulations. Shoppers have been claiming that they have been fined by police for leaving the house to buy items considered non-essential, including wine and snacks. Those said to be breaking the conditions were warned that police would have the power to enforce the measures through fines and dispersing gatherings. One shopper has said she was fined £30 after her shopping bags were checked, saying, "I was walking through Holyrood Park in Edinburgh on Sunday afternoon on my way back from Morrison's. 2 officers asked to look inside my bag and then fined me for only having crisps, other snacks and a bottle of wine." Now, I'm going to have to really look at the regulations, but as far as I can remember, there's nothing in there regarding fining people for buying snacks, only that the fines are available to people who fail to comply with disbursement when asked to do so. As indicated in this next, as the shopper I just mentioned was reported to have refused to comply with the police requests to return home right away, which seems to be the reason she was fined. Although other reports suggest a resident from West Lothian tweeted to say that they knew 2 people who had been fined, a nurse in uniform leaving a patient's house and another leaving a shop with just a bottle of wine. A similar tweet stated a friend of my daughter was just fined £30 on the spot in Edinburgh the other night, having just brought wines and snacks, both of which are non-essential. Still seems a bit draconian to me. One police force tweeted to say it was disappointed to find people out buying compost and other garden items it deemed non-essential. But just what is non-essential? Just because some items may not be essential to some people, they may well be to another. Also, what's stopping people buying some non-essential items along with their essential items? This makes the definition so broad that police can arbitrarily fine everyone. I mean, yeah, of course, if you go out solely to pick up some compost, for example, then that's not essential to most people. But if you need something to keep you from tipping over the edge and going completely nuts during lockdown, is sorting your garden out so that you have a reason to stay at home and something to do while you are there really unessential? Now again, this is all subjective, and giving police the powers to use their discretion gives the police the powers to abuse that legislation. And to show just how bad this is, Northamptonshire Police Chief Constable Nick Adderley said a 3-week grace period is over in the country, and the force will now be issuing fines and arresting people for breaking the rules, including introducing measures such as roadblocks and searching shopping trolleys as people to continue to flout the coronavirus regulations. Nazi Germany is here. He said further measures would also be implemented should people continue to flout the regulations, including marshalling supermarkets and checking the items in baskets and trolleys. He added, forces are damned if you do, damned if you don't when it comes to policing the new rules, and he added the government guidance on how to police the rules could be clearer. Well, no, Mr. Adderley. If you stick to policing and enforcing the actual law, then there wouldn't be much of an issue. Taking it upon yourself to determine whether what someone has in their shopping trolley is essential or not is not only a waste of time and taxpayers' money, but is going to do nothing but cause more people to detest you and the police state you're clearly trying to impose. If, however, you stick to making sure people are social distancing and make sure that the crimes that were happening before the lockdown, which are still happening during the lockdown, I might add, are dealt with, then you might get some respect back. Your opinions are not the law. They are not legally enforceable, and as yet there is nothing in the legislation which you have to follow to suggest what we can or cannot buy. So I suggest you are simply so far removed from real life that you just can't see how much more damage you are doing. Speaking at a press conference on Thursday, he said, "I really need to emphasise this point. This is about saving people's lives. This is the really serious end of what we do." The role of the police is to preserve lives and protect property, and we have to do that, and we will do that. So whose lives are you protecting if you're stopping people from losing the plot by preventing them from giving themselves something to do during the lockdown? Oh, and as for protecting property, where exactly are you when people call you up due to house break-ins, car thefts? You're nowhere to be seen, no. Because you're all out in beauty spots taking TikTok videos, Snapchat photos and adding to your Instagram stories. If things don't improve and we don't get the compliance we would expect, then the next stage will be roadblocks, and it will be stopping people why they are going, where they are going. This is about reasonableness, and if people are not reasonable in terms of the journeys and the trips they are taking, then they're just going to fall foul of the law. Reasonableness. Based on what we've seen recently, that is one thing that is in short supply in police forces across the country. Now, on the same lines as the last couple of stories there, let's just take a look at how the police are dealing with the new regulations themselves. Police in Haringey are under internal investigation over allegations they showed flagrant disregard for social distancing rules. It's a surprise. The Met's Professional Standards Department is probing claims that coronavirus measures were repeatedly breached at Wood Green Police Station. The complaint was filed by Walthamstow legal firm McClarty's solicitors. Ian McClarty gathered statements from lawyers who reported encountering unsafe conditions at the station for more than a week. He urged investigators to seize CCTV to corroborate the accounts. A female solicitor said she was left in a confined area with 6 people, some of whom were coughing. When a detainee complained about the lack of social distancing, she said the staff just laughed. One lawyer was sent to meet a man who had been in self-isolation when he was arrested as a member of his household had COVID-19 symptoms. He said he was expected to consult the client in a noisy cell where they could not hear one another if they were more than 1 metre apart. Another solicitor said he was denied a phone call with a client on the grounds that no officers were available to supervise, as half the staff were off sick due to the coronavirus. Yet at the station later that day, he said he saw around 20 police officers a short distance apart, with no protective equipment besides gloves. Mr. McClarty said when he raised concerns, an officer screamed at him down the phone. He said Wood Green Police Station seemed to think it's exempt from government advice. All the police seem to think they're exempt from government advice. All Met Police interview rooms breached the 2 metre rule and were talking about people arrested on suspicion of totally low-level crimes. Ironically, one had been arrested for allegedly breaching the government advice. A Met spokesperson said the Metropolitan Police has received a complaint relating to the custody suite at Wood Green Police Station. The complaint was made on Friday, April the 3rd, by a solicitor to the Independent Office for Police Conduct and relates both to the conduct of staff and concerns over the protection of visitors from COVID-19. The matter has been passed to the Met's Directorate of Professional Standards, where it will be completely ignored, swept under the carpet and forgotten about. That's not what it said. Now, I have to say, if any of you see the police breaching these regulations themselves, unless of course it's in a situation that can't be helped, for example making an arrest, a lawful arrest, or helping a member of the public in a life or death situation, then you should be making complaints. You should be documenting the incidents, video it, share it, send it to me so I can keep a record of it here on the channel and show people, but do not ignore it. Police during the lockdown and since the release of the social distancing advice are the ones often flouting the regulations. but there's too many bootlickers are arguing the case for them. And I find myself wondering how many bootlickers will actually refuse to believe the police can spread the virus too. There's video evidence already of police breaking rules in astonishing ways, and yet people are not speaking up about it. We are, as members of the public, generally socially distancing and doing well, but we're still being targeted for other offences by people who are ignoring their own guidance. And that's just not on. It's not fair and it's not in the public interest, especially as police will no doubt have to deal with vulnerable people during this pandemic, which makes them likely the biggest threat of virus transmission. A big thank you to Patreon supporters Motty Lad, Holly, Adi, Davey and W, Copwatch UK, Dean J, Cole, President Trump and Danielle, whose support is helping me to continue providing this daily content. Even today's video with one mention of a sex offender will make it unsuitable for most advertisers. Anyway, that's all I have for you today. Please like, share, comment and subscribe. Let me know your thoughts, as I know many of you will. And until next time, stay safe, look after each other, film the police and other officials.
Good night, all.
Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. If you like the content and you'd like to help support the channel, you can do so. In the description of every video there are some links to ways that you're able to help support the channel so I can continue putting out content. If you're unable to help us in that way, hit that subscribe button up the top there. If you haven't already, become a subscriber. That is support enough. Share the videos, comment, like, it all helps. If you're looking for something else to watch, up top there is my latest video. Down the bottom there is a video that YouTube recommends for you.